The church in Ephesus.
And yes, still on the church in Ephesus, Paul writes an epistle, a letter to this church, and he addresses this church as the faithful. This church was strong in the Lord. This church was faithful. This church had some spiritual hardship and wars. And Paul writes to this church on how to put on the full armor and face the spiritual realm and the spirits in the spiritual realm. This church loved the Lord. In the book of Acts chapter 19, as you read chapter 20, Paul rented in Ephesus and stayed there for 3 years, teaching them the way. And people brought their books of witchcraft and they burnt their things there and turning to repentance in the Lord. This church was strong. This was a business center. And these people met here, the Jews, the Greeks, all the races, almost all of them, they used to meet in this place. So it was a lovely place to live. And we see that Paul teaches them, and Paul leaves, and he calls for the elders in this church of Ephesus and tells them to be on guard and watch over the sheep, over whom the Lord had made them the shepherds. And he warns them of the change in doctrine, that even from among them some men will arise who will pervert the doctrine. He tells them to be watchful. This man cries and weeps because of the love of Yeshua in them and because of the work the Lord had done through Paul in their town, in their place, showing them the light. And not after so long, in these churches where we have Timothy as a shepherd, as a pastor, you can call him a bishop. Paul writes the first letter to Timothy, and he tells him that he needs to rebuke, to warn the men who had risen and perverted the doctrine and began teaching other doctrines in the church in Ephesus. Not so long, then we see now that after Paul had left, again we are seeing now that John used also to stay in Ephesus. And he used to write letters like the 1st John, 2nd John, from this place of Ephesus. It was a lovely place. It was a church that had been loved with the Spirit of the Lord because of their faith in the Lord. But then, after Paul had left, now the Spirit of the Lord, Yeshua himself, is revealing to John about the falling from the first love in this church because of the doctrines that had risen. And so John is warning them through the revelation. Today, this church is no more. Remember, these churches were in Turkey, that is Asia. But today we don't see them because of the falsehood. Today people are preaching falsehood, and the faith has been lost in the love of Yeshua. Keep going, never give up. Keep the faith and love propelling.